the first full day, round one of all the tournament action. I will update you on all the scores of the early window.
Madness.
It is madness right now. Some things are happening right in front of us that will be fun. Now, let me set up the show. We're going to – oh, yeah, I'm on YouTube. Hi, 680 The Fan YouTube. You're looking at my behind because I'm staring at the screens. Nobody needs that. We have a busy show for you today. Dansby Swanson, Braves shortstop, will join us in about 15 minutes. Paul Hewitt, former Georgia Tech head coach, will be by at around 2:30. We'll get you all set. We're going to walk you right up to Georgia Tech and Loyola Chicago. Coming up at 3:30 pregame, 4 o'clock tip. Hoyt and Los, if you hear me distracted today, you understand why, and don't give me grief. I don't want any talking tos during the break. Chuck, what am I holding right here?
Tickets, plural, bunch of them.
Tickets, correct.
Paper.
This radio show is going to get in my way right now. I have a lot of things going behind me.
It's awful when work gets in the way.
It really does. I miss Hoyt and Los, though.
Sportsbook and gamble.
They should be with us. I feel like we don't have our better halves here enjoying.
Additional halves.
The first day of the
let's say additional halves.
All right, let me update you quickly on what's happening right now. You got Virginia Tech up 50-46 over Florida. Virginia Tech's the 10 seed, Florida the 7. That was the first game.
78, Croatia 73.
I don't believe that game is left. No, that hasn't tipped off.
Oh, Croatia got a 12.
Let me explain to you what happened with Arkansas and Colgate. Colgate is
I was smelling bacon early in that.
That's a 3-14. Colgate was up 33-19 with about 4 minutes to go in the half. Arkansas goes on a 17-0 run to finish the half. So they lead 36, they're now 38-33 early on in the second half. Drexel right now in a 1-16 game. They trail the number one seed Illinois 39-21. And Utah State and Texas Tech early in the first half. Utah State leads at 10-9. Now, we will walk you right up as I stop showing my ass to YouTube. We will walk you.
Where's YouTube?
Can we turn Chuck up? For some reason, he's very low. Very low. Let's get him turned up there. It's a very loud sports book here.
I don't even know if I'm hitting the right stuff.
Let the engineer handle that
I should
business.
probably just walk
All
away.
right, there we go.
Turn down the station, please.
So, Georgia Tech is a 5.5-point underdog. It was a game that was a pick'em when it came out when the brackets were released a week ago. Mm-hmm. Then Loyola pumps up to a 2.5-point spread, and then when the Moses Wright news comes out, it jumped up to 5.5 or 6 in the game.
And where is it now?
It's at 6 in some places, 5.5 right here behind us at Harrah's Cherokee. So 3:30 Ramble Direct tip-off show, 4 o'clock, you'll get the tip and the action right here on the Fan.
Last night I made a mistake, but I had a blast. I had fun.
What was her name?
At about 10 o'clock, when I've normally been asleep for an hour, I get up at 5 every day.
Right.
I looked at my phone on Twitter, and I searched for Norfolk State.
Of course you did.
Because I had a whole $50 bet on the line. I saw they had been up by 19. They were now up by 6. I was in bed with the lights off. What did I do? I got up, got dressed, came down to the sports book.
Like, you guys were all over this Norfolk State, and I'm like, I know nothing about any of these teams.
No, I knew everything. I had an App State fan text me, quote, "We're not that good." I was like, all right, that's quality analysis.
Right, okay.
So by about 10:15, I'm dressed and I'm down here. Of course, I see Frank Duffy at that point.
Oh, Frank told me he saw you.
All right. We bring Norfolk State home. My hand to the Lord, I turn it around from the window, and Frank says, "Hey, you going to bring home UCLA with me?"
That was the late start.
He said, "They're in the second half." I looked up. There was 19:33 left in the second half. They go to overtime. Frank cashes his ticket. So I came down here to safeguard my little $50, and it turned out like I got in bed about 1 a.m.
Well, you're a team player, Charles, and I'm sure Frank appreciated the good karma to help him out. So we'll update you on all the madness that is going on behind us here at the book at Harrah's Cherokee.
This is a fun place.
A couple of things. Hawks, boy, they've had fun in March. Hawks are now 7-0 in the month of March. They won their 7th in a row last night. They blew out OKC 116-93. They dominated from beginning to end, and that's what you want to do against a bad team. Hawks jumped out 25-8 early, cruised the rest of the way. Trae Young scored 23, had 9 assists in 25 minutes. They got to rest him for the final 15 minutes of the game. Bogdanovich played his best game as a Hawk, which is great to see. He got 23 last night, 6 boards, 3 assists. He shot the lights out. All of that is very good. Hawks are 21-20. They're in the 5th spot in the East. They're a game out of 4th right now as they head west for this 8-game road trip starting with the Lakers tomorrow afternoon. And
who's going to be active?
They haven't announced it yet, but DeAndre's traveling. Chris Dunn's traveling. Hopefully they get him back. Can they just go 3-5 on the road? Like, honestly, if they can just go 3-5, come back, you're in great shape.
Yep.
They're in perfect shape, so we'll keep you up to date on that. Braves back in action tonight at 6:05. You'll get that on Extra 106.3.
Who's pitching?
Tonight it's Ian.
Ooh, I knew that.
Yeah. We're just 13 days away from opening day.
Oh. We'll be 1-0 2 weeks from right now.
Let's hope so. So this sets up nicely because if the Braves are giving us an indication, Fried, Morton, Ian, in that order will open in Philadelphia. And then if the Braves want to bring Fried back for the opener of the Washington series, they can do that. So things are setting up very nicely for them. One more note here. The Falcons have made 2 signings, and don't get excited. They're shopping on the dollar aisle. They signed Raiders safety Eric Harris yesterday. They signed linebacker Brandon Copeland today. That's kind of what they're going to be doing now is free agency for them allows them to go shopping in the second and third wave of the fund. Did you see the details of the Dante Fowler
the
restructure?
Dude, that was a pay cut. That wasn't a restructure.
It was.
That was Dante, you want to be active or not?
So he had a $14 million deal this year. $6 million of it was supposed to be guaranteed. The Falcons reduced his salary to $6 million, added $4 million in incentives. So if he gets to 11 sacks, he'll get $4 million. If he gets to 9 sacks, he'll get $3 million. If he gets to 7 sacks, $2 million, and 5 sacks, $1 million. It's like, here's our take it or leave it. If you want to be in Atlanta another year, there's the deal.
I think he responds because the only other time he's really had to do this, the only other time Dante has been challenged, he responded. And the Rams benefited. And then the Rams said, yeah, no more.
So let's see if it motivates him a little more to get cranked up for the Falcons this year. All right, Paul Hewitt joins us in about 20 minutes. We'll talk to him about dealing with a tournament game without your best player.
Who's he scout for?
He's with the Clippers.
Okay.
So I want to ask him all about being without B.J. Elder when he made their run.
Yeah. Is that an ankle or a hamstring?
It was an ankle. Hurt it in the Sweet 16. But Dansby Swanson, Braves shortstop, will join us next. I'm curious how long it took Dansby to get over the 7-game series loss against the Dodgers. How does this team stack up against last year's team? We'll pick the brain of one of the best guys and best hairdos in the city and in the state. Dansby Swanson joins us next. We're live at Harrah's Cherokee, right outside the book. It's the madness on the Fan.
Dansby Swanson.
today as we walk you right up to Georgia Tech and Loyola Chicago.
I did not get a break.
NCAA tournament action on the Fan will follow us. The 2 p.m. hour of our show is brought to you by Roof It Forward.
Job to job.
We are live at Harrah's Cherokee right outside the brand new Book, which opened yesterday, and what a great look. I mean, first of all, Harrah's Cherokee, the resort is beautiful. The restaurant options, had a great dinner last night. Our buddy Brandon Joseph and I went over and grabbed some Italian at Brio, enjoyed that, hit the blackjack table, sports book behind us with the Book being open. This is so close to Atlanta that it's got to be a destination, either one of the 2 Harrah's Cherokee locations.
Now, we've discussed this before. It's documented. I don't like stuff.
Yeah, you're not much of a stuff guy.
And I don't have fun.
Yeah.
It took exactly 24 hours of me being on this property. 1 a.m., I'm saying, ma'am, can I get your attention like a beverage, please, as I'm cashing my other winning ticket? It took 24 hours for that to happen to me.
The fun, it's hard to fight it. It really is. Dansby Swanson, Braves shortstop, will join us coming up here in a moment. I just saw where Mark Bowman, who covers the Braves for MLB.com, said Mike Soroka is preparing to throw a simulated game on the main field this afternoon in Northport. He appears to be on schedule, but a projected return date is still unknown, hasn't been set at this point. What were you saying to me, Hoyt? I thought I missed that. Okay, yeah, so everything we're hearing about Soroka is he's still potentially mid-April, which is great news. Even if they want to slow play it another week or two, the options of Bryce Wilson, who I guess is probably leading the chase right now, if the Braves go with a 5th starter early over Kyle Wright and Huascar Ynoa, that would be the option. So good news on Soroka. All the returns are good. I just think they want to be very cautious, which makes sense.
This is March 19th right now. Pitchers and catchers reported a month and a couple of days ago, and the very first report we got from Ben Ingram at Northport was they're having to tell Soroka, slow down, son. Like, we got a while. We got runway. And he's like, I'm ready. I feel great. And I think we had Peter on, actually, maybe the first or second week.
Peter, actually known as Mike Soroka, correct.
And he said, yeah, I feel great. I'm no reservations, ready to cut it loose. And the team has been telling him for 5 weeks, we're not ready for you to cut it loose.
Well, you know what that is? That's 23-year-old strong.
Yeah.
That is like, I'm ready to go, and I'm sure he feels like he is. And Mike told us, though, when he was on, he's like, once you get to a certain point, it's not worrying about re-injuring the Achilles. He says maybe you do something else to yourself to overcompensate mentally because you don't know if it's going to feel as strong in your head the way it did before the injury. So I think the Braves, again, this is a centerpiece to your pitching staff. If it means instead of April 15th, they bring him back April 29th, fine. And you know when you'll get the returns on that one, maybe you have a more fresh Mike Soroka later on with a couple, 3 less starts.
The Strasburg theory.
It could certainly be that way. So tonight, Ian Anderson goes for the Braves. 6:05, one of the few night games from Northport, as they now close in on 13 days till the regular season begins in Philadelphia, where we all assume, unless something happens, Max Fried will get the ball for the Braves in the opener with Charlie Morton, who has been unbelievable. Just his stuff so far in spring training would go in game 2. Ian Anderson in 3. I misspoke I should have said Drew Smiley would pitch game 4, which would be the opener in Washington, with then Fried coming back for the second game of that series. So that sets up nicely for the Braves. And then remember, they're home April 9th, fans in the building at Truist. And I've talked to a lot of Brave fans who are either already planning to be there, trying any which way to get tickets. That is going to be such a fun. That 13,000 is going to sound like 50 that day.
And as of this morning, I had another just regular walking around normal age individual telling me, quote, oh, get my shot tomorrow. Well, really? How do you qualify? Well, this. It's getting broader and broader and broader, Matt. So, I mean, we've got 2.5 weeks. We got 3 weeks to the home opener, and yeah, it's getting better. And I want to reiterate this because we talked about it and we gave the Braves kudos when they announced it this way, because most people haven't, I've seen, but the Braves said we'll evaluate after each homestand.
They're smart.
Whether it's 6 games, 9 games, 10, whatever, we'll evaluate after each home game homestand because the numbers and percentages are changing. So that's really good.
Let me update you on a couple of things. As again, we have the book right behind us here at Harrah's Cherokee. 4 games going right now in the early window, with Virginia Tech and Florida being the deepest into their game. 3 minutes to go. In round 1, the Gators have jumped to a lead, 56-53. They have the ball, try to protect that 3-point lead. Colgate has had a nice run back the other way at Arkansas. The 14 seed leads 49-44 over third seeded Arkansas there with 13:49 to play in that one. Illinois, the 1 seed, with a 39-21 lead over the 16 Drexel, and Utah State and Texas Tech. They're 12-12 with 7:29 to go. Florida just hit a big 3. So Florida up 6, and if you were like Matt, you have Virginia Tech -1.5. You're not feeling so good right now.
Yeah, and if you're a Georgia fan or anybody else, you want Florida to win this.
Why?
Because you get more money.
Oh, all right.
Like literally, if Florida wins and you're an Auburn fan, your school gets like $41,000 more.
I mean, okay. I mean, that's. Now, I don't think there's a Georgia fan rooting for Florida, even in basketball.
I'm just telling you what the outcome is.
Hoyt,
I didn't say you had to.
Hoyt, let me ask you a question.
Can you be bought for $40,000?
Do you want Georgia to get $40,000, or do you want to see Florida lose in a painful first-round exit of the tournament?
Oh, God, let me see. Yeah, Florida can lose.
Hold it. Because if they win in the second round, you know what happens? It goes up to like $150,000 or whatever. You get points as your team advances, and everybody in your whole dang conference gets paid for 4 years.
All right. Is our next guest ready to go? All right, let's shift gears. As the Braves close in on opening day, I know he's one of the fans' favorite for good reason. He's Brave shortstop Dansby Swanson, who's kind enough to join us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Dansby, we appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Before we look ahead, I have to go back one last time and talk to you about the way things ended last year. How long does it take a guy like you to get over that type of a loss in 7 games, being that close to a World Series?
Well, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I think you ever get over it. I just think it's just something you kind of work through. It's never tough losing. I hate losing. Shoot, I even still probably think about the times I lost in Mario Kart as a kid. So it's just one of those things where you don't really want to move on. You want to move through it. I don't think that you can truly get to a point where you know you can be better until you actually move through it and kind of live through some of those feelings that come with such a tough loss, you know, at that point in the year. But I really do think it's going to make us better. I know it's made me better, and I know it'll make everybody else on this team better too when that time comes up. So excited for things to come.
Dansby, I want to go all the way the opposite, back to your very first game, and I actually happened to be in the building that night, and you got a couple of base hits. I was like, all right, well, if this is what it's going to be, that's kind of awesome. And then for the rest of that first season, it kind of was that. It looked easy. It could not have been easy. Do you remember looking around going, I've been up here 15 minutes, and I'm hitting like 340, when you came up because it was a lot of success?
Yeah, I think just at that point there was zero pressure at all. I feel like we, as an organization, we're not very good. You know, we were a little lower on the totem pole, and I just remember having such confidence in people telling me just be myself, not change, just stay true to the things that got me to that point. And I know that really, really helped while I was up there, and I just kind of went out there and just competed. There was nothing else to it other than competing. And then, you know, from that point forward, I definitely went through plenty of my ups and downs and kind of gotten back to that version of myself. You know, I've been told a lot recently, it's not about becoming someone that you haven't been. It's just always about getting back to the person you've always been. So that's kind of how I've been living the last couple of years.
Dansby Swanson, Brave shortstop with Chuck and Chernoff on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Dansby, you're a bright guy. I need you to help me understand chemistry because nobody can ever define it. We just see it when it's there, and we complain about it when it's not. You guys look like you do nothing but have fun. There's a ton of guys on that team that, I mean, the interaction post-game, in-game. Explain to me the Braves' chemistry and why it works.
Well, for me, chemistry is all about relationships. It's all about putting forth the effort to build relationships, love on one another, be willing to serve one another. You know, I think there's not a sexy answer to it. It's just the truth. Usually isn't too sexy, but that's the truth. It takes effort. It takes conscious thinking. It takes an attitude that you're willing to serve your teammates and the coaching staff, and just to be, you know, I like to call it servant leadership. I think that's the best way to grow chemistry and grow relationships. Whether that's with your girlfriend or with, with your teammates.
It's specific.
It's definitely, to me, it's the true way to be, and I know that a lot of guys on our team, embody those characteristics, which is why I think that there is such a genuine feel to it, because we do care about each other. We really do care about each other. We all have the same vision in mind, so it's definitely a blessing to be a part of it.
And I want to ask you specifically along those lines about you and Ozzie, because several times every single game there's a lot happening around second base with a runner and a toss and a turn and all kinds, and you got to have chemistry with the second baseman, and y'all got it.
Yeah, well, my comparison is always those two old dudes that are schooling everybody on the blacktop, because they just know each other so well and they've done it so much together. I don't think people realize that me and Ozzie have been doing this and playing together for the last 4 or 5 years. And so we've really been able to develop a unique relationship. He knows things on field that I, prefer, whether it's speeds or communication or whatever. We've just done it so long together that, in a way, kind of hard to explain, but we're just very aware and in tune with one another at all times.
Dansby Swanson, Brave shortstop. Dansby, the noise in the background, we're live at Harrah's at the sports book here, so ignore the March Mania fun going on behind us. Tell me how you're handling the business side of things. How are you separating business from out on the field? And you're going to tell me your agent handles it all, but we're all human beings, and when you're going through a negotiation or arbitration, it's hard to separate those two. How are you handling that?
This is 100% the truth. It didn't and doesn't bother me one bit. Money and business has never defined me. It's never been, something that I put my value into. I know who I am and what I was made to do and who I was created by, and that's truly all that matters to me. There's not really anything that an arbiter or another lawyer's going to say about me. It really has no bearing on me. So it's a good place to be in mentally. I enjoy being here, enjoy being around, close friends and teammates, and just want to win.
All right, you and I, let's go back in time 4 years, because I saw what we were just saying. It's like he's in the Bigs 15 minutes, and it looks easy. Spring of 17, I'm driving to work, and I see Dansby Swanson on a billboard. And then I see the release of the promotional days, and I was like, oh, Dansby Swanson bobblehead. I said, before the season started, I was like, it looks like a bit much. I mean, he's still in his rookie season. This seems like a lot of pressure, especially for a local boy. Did you look back now? Was that any element, or it had no bearing at all?
I definitely think it's a component of it. I just feel like it wasn't necessarily my time to be ready. I felt like I was meant to go through that. I needed to go through that. Whether you want to call it a humbling phase or a learning phase, whatever it may be, I was meant to go through it. we were talking about earlier about Game 7. I truly believe we were meant to go through that. Mal right after kept telling me that, this is what you got. This is, it wasn't your time yet. I know it's not fun, but it just wasn't your time. And that's kind of how I've looked at my first couple of years where I struggled and things of that nature. I needed to go through it to get to this person of who I am right now. So I am very thankful for it. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I'm thankful that it happened.
Dansby Swanson, Brave shortstop, with us for one more minute. Let me ask you about that. When you are struggling, who do you talk to remind you how good you are and the confidence you have? And when you're going great, who do you talk to make sure you stay humble?
Honestly, I don't really like people telling me that I'm great and confidence and all that kind of stuff. Obviously I'm, Mal being my girlfriend and going through all her professional stuff too. She keeps a very unique perspective on those kinds of things. But I've been working with a mental wellness coach now for about a year and a half. And we meet once a week, through Zoom, but we meet once a week, and he kind of keeps me level, whether I'm high. It's just one of those things where rinse and repeat is kind of like our motto. Just do the things you need to do to be successful, and just go play, and then we'll do it again, and all those kinds of things. So it's really just gotten me back to, like I said earlier, gotten me back to truly who I am and embracing, who I was made to be.
Repetition of message is huge, isn't it?
Amen. Amen.
Dansby, we appreciate the time, my friend. Have a great season. I mean, it goes without saying, this city has fallen in love with this team, with Dansby Swanson as well. So we wish you nothing but success and health, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it very much. There's Dansby Swanson, Brave shortstop, with Chuck and Chernoff on the Fan. We'll have Paul Hewitt joining us in a moment.
Not even who he's going to be yet as a player either.
He's still. There's ceiling still there.
There is, and I think that he can. His career, whatever it turns into, however many years, I think he probably lives 20 to 25 bombs, and the defense is there. And I know there's a lot of other ways to measure it, but I don't know. If you go yard a lot, that carries the day in modern day MLB. And he's what you want, man.
We have seen many times Dansby get on those hot runs, and the injury bug has derailed what could be some of the numbers you're kind of referencing.
Yeah,
Last year was his best season in that 60 games. Yep. So let's see this year if that can continue with the Braves needing just more production now, in a lot of areas on this baseball team. You're getting it from, Ozuna, but like we talked about, and other players. Guys are going to dip a little bit. Talk to Mark Marcel coming back to earth. Somebody else might need a little bit more.
Ozzy's going to be better until
so is
Acuna.
Acuna, but we'll see if Dansby is as well.
And center field.
A couple of updates here quickly before Paul Hewitt joins us. Florida leads Virginia Tech 62-61. Now with 39 seconds to play in the second half of that game in a 7-10 matchup. Florida's got the basketball there, so we'll update you on that one as it comes down the stretch. But let's bring in the former head coach of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. He's now a scout with the LA Clippers. We get to pick the brain of a guy who's been through the wars when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Paul Hewitt, kind enough to join Chuck and Chernoff on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Coach, it's a pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. How you doing?
We're doing great. There's some similarities that I wanted to pick your brain about in a different way. But Georgia Tech's about to take the floor with Loyola Chicago today without, and I'm going to say, quote, their best player, the ACC Player of the Year in Moses Wright. Yeah. You had to deal with losing B.J. Elder when you did in different circumstances in the beginning of a Sweet 16 game. So I wanted to ask you, Paul, do you have to verbalize to your team, hey, everybody else here is still good enough that we can win without a B.J.? Is that an understanding? Like, how do you think Josh Pastner handles it, and what did you do in that spot?
Well, watching Josh's team, especially with Alvarado, I mean, he's a very confident kid. And so I think those guys, obviously they know they're going to miss a big-time player in Moses Wright. But I would guess their confidence level is one that they're taking that as a challenge. And I think that's the same way our guys took it. You aren't going to tell Will Bynum or Jared Jack they weren't good enough to advance without, B.J. Elder. So I'm sure Josh's group, Michael DeVoe, Jordan Usher, all those kids are up for the challenge today.
How much of the actual approach will change offensively? You're not going to give the replacement the same, ops as the, same touches as the ACC Player of the Year.
Yeah, and obviously, that's a huge, void for them. I haven't watched them a ton, but in the time that I have watched them, Moses benefited a lot from the ability of Alvarado and those guys to create for him. He's not a guy, from what I can see, that can score well over size and things like that. But at the same time, when he has a crease to the basket, he explodes and scores. So, you're not going to replace that type of athleticism, that finishing ability in traffic. But there's going to be somebody, I'm not sure who they're going to play, but there's going to be somebody that's going to get some of those, drop step opportunities and dump off opportunities that will be able to, they'll be able to finish. But again, you expect the veteran guys like Alvarado, DeVoe, Usher, those guys to carry the load offensively.
Do you think, and Coach Paul Hewitt, former coach of the Jackets with Chuck and Chernoff on the Fan, do you think, again, when you talk about a veteran club, Alvarado, and you mentioned, Jordan Usher and those guys, can it be a situation where guys try to do too much, though, to overcompensate? Like, how do you battle that if you're the player and the coach to say, still do what you do, just don't try to fill that gap with Moses Wright out?
Yeah, you would think as many games as those guys have under their belt, they'll know how to handle it. I'm sure there's been situations throughout the career for all of these players at Georgia Tech where they've played a game without a key player. And again, I'm not trying to minimize his loss. I mean, talking about the ACC Player of the Year, that's a huge, huge loss. But this time of the year, it's about finding something that works and see if you can milk it for, from one timeout to the next, and also the pressure dynamics that go into, everybody on the court knows it's, one and done situation. So you don't know if they get up on Loyola, how they're going to react. If they find something they can exploit and they continue to go to that throughout the game. That's what's the fun thing about the NCAA. It's about NCAA college basketball. I mean, just so many different styles. It's not like the NBA where pretty much everybody does the same stuff and the talent really is, the most important factor. It's obviously an extremely important factor in college basketball as well. But in college basketball, you can style sometimes can create an opportunity for a team to have an advantage and ride that advantage.
Paul, how would it change, factor or irrelevant, that in a normal March Madness you fly to Landover, Maryland or Anaheim for two games, and then you go back to campus, and then you fly somewhere else for a couple games and maybe go back to campus? That's not what this is. It's going and camping out for a couple of weeks. Does that change anything at all?
I would imagine the players are going to be more well-rested. If you get past this weekend to the next weekend, you don't have to, like you said, fly home and hang out, there for a couple of days and get back on the plane. Because the one thing that I know from coming out of the bubble, I just came out of the G League bubble, not having to get on a plane or get on a bus and travel and place, it's a heck of a benefit. It really is. So I would imagine that if you advance from this weekend to the next weekend, the energy level of players is not going to be low. Because once you get past this weekend, guys are running on fumes. Like I can even remember, our second-round game, the years I was at Tech, we had, I think, three second-round games. And, just from that first round to second round, guys are exhausted. And then when you get to the next weekend, they're running on fumes. So being in one place, I think, will help the players rest and be a little bit more energized, as energized as they can be given this time of the year.
Well, I want to follow up on that. Former Jackets coach Paul Hewitt with Chuck and Chernoff, now a scout with the L.A. Clippers. It feels like, as a fan, the NCAA tournament game lasts 4 hours. It just feels longer TV timeouts, and the pressure certainly just makes the game feel longer. How exhausted are you, and do you sense that your players are at the end of, let's say, like the Boston College game, or you guys beat Northern Iowa, if memory serves, in the first round in 2004? What's the level of exhaustion after just one of those games?
Oh, no, you're exhausted. You're absolutely tired. But as a coach, you're constantly thinking preparation. Let's watch film. Let's walk through. And I can remember between those games in Northern Iowa and the Boston College game, we went back to the arena the next day and had a light practice. And we were going through all the Boston College's stuff, and they ran a lot of stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, when I got back to the hotel room that night, I was like, you know what, we might have just lost this game, because I could see on the face that our guys are really tired. And, to keep them on the court as long as I did that day was clearly a mistake. But, we had good enough talent and good enough players, and we got off to a quick start, which is, I think, a lot to do with the preparation that we did. But then the latter part of the game, we just ran out of fumes. We just ran out of gas, and we just held on to get that win.
All right, I got to say, when it comes to fashion, old gold and white is not the easiest base to work out from. You had the sweetest sports coats in the ACC. What was the secret? You did good stuff with it, man.
My wife, she's the one that picked all the clothes.
But and Chuck doesn't believe in superstition, Coach, and I'm a sports fan who does.
I just like the jacket, man. Thought it mattered.
No, athletes and coaches, if it works and you win, guess what you're wearing the next time? Tell him I'm not making that up.
No, you're absolutely right. I had a pair of shoes also that I wore through the whole. I think I had it most of the time I was at Tech. And anytime we won a game, I was like, hey, these are the shoes, and any other part of the ensemble that was part of a win, we're going to keep going until it wears out.
How and this is what I want to ask you too. I talked to you about the exhaustion, Coach. Looking back, and maybe in the moment you're just too caught up. Are you kind of at all, in awe, sort of amazed at the young basketball player being 18, 19, 20, and 21 that can rise to the pressure as that tournament mounts? The Will Bynum moment being the ultimate moment, but that is such stress and such pressure, and your team and so many others, buzzer beaters, late game moments. Does that kind of shock you that they can handle that well?
It does, but it's also the beauty of being young. Being young and confident, like going back to, you asked me about earlier in this conversation about how will the Tech players view the loss of a Moses Wright. I guarantee you every one of those kids think like, hey, this is my moment to be the guy and to have that opportunity to get on this big stage. And so I think that's one of the beauties of being young, is that you have literally no fear. And especially at high-level Division I players who've gotten to this point where they're in the NCAA tournament, they all believe that they're going to, it's their moment, and that's part of the reason why they're good enough to get here.
Paul, most coaches are, we will say, they're protective of their players. You were like territorial sometimes about it, and I remember back in the day saying, good for him, he's repping his guy. Good for Coach Hewitt. Do you look back on it? Do you have any, would you have changed maybe some of how you dealt with the media maybe in some situations?
No, I don't think so. I certainly think, especially today, there's so much media out there. You can't spend all your time worrying about it. But when you go to a parent or a coach or an AU coach and say, "Hey, I'm going to coach your player, your son, your brother, and I'm going to do it because I can to make sure he has a positive experience, protect him," and I kind of took that responsibility seriously. And so I don't regret it. I mean, if they're going to say anything negative, they can say it about the coach, the coaching staff, what we're doing, but certainly not about the young man.
How is life as a scout? Do you enjoy that side of things?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm very fortunate to work with a good friend in Lawrence Frank, who's the president of Staff for the Falcons. I've known him for 20-some years, and I love the responsibility of going out and scouting and writing reports on players, and also get involved with different aspects of our organization. It's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
Well, it's great catching up, Coach. Glad to hear you're well. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the tournament action. As you can hear in the background where we are, people are all into it and having a blast. Glad you're well. We'll talk soon, Coach. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it very much. There's Georgia Tech, former Georgia Tech head coach Paul Hewitt with Chuck and Chernoff on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker.
It wasn't just this example. There were a few others, but do you remember the Tony Aiken thing when we were both at 790? And I remember I was like, good for Coach.
Well, the other one was Luke Schenscher.
That was it.
He was and it's fine. He should stick up for his guys. You can hear more of Coach. I had him on Welcome to Atlanta in the archive section there. He's just a really interesting guy with the perspective now being gone. He said, I stayed too long. I thought that was really intriguing. He's like, I should have left after 10 years. I stayed the 11th. Dave Brain talked me into it.
Is that Nick's thing real?
The what?
Nick's? Wasn't he going to go?
No, I asked him about that.
Okay. You remember that?
Yeah, I asked him about the Knicks thing.
Okay.
You can hear that in the he went to a dinner with Isaiah Thomas, though. He didn't have a dinner. Nothing really more than that came out of it. But, yeah, he was the hot commodity there for some time.
He had his 15 minutes.
Good for him. He earned it. That postseason run to the championship game in 2004 was a lot of fun. All right, coming up next, science.
Yeah, Mr. White.
It's giving us a new way to scout players.
Yes, science.
And it's going to help this Bulldog next month.
Bitch.
I knew it was coming.
No.
We'll talk about him as we're live at Harrah's Cherokee next. waiting for the city of Atlanta to make the short drive and enjoy the fun. 680 The Fan is proud to announce our new official partnership created to make our office studios the most COVID-free and virus-free environment in town. Thanks to Cleanwell, the official disinfectant and commercial cleaning company of 680 The Fan. Cleanwell is the premier commercial cleaning company in the Southeast, trusted by Georgia Bulldog Athletics, the Atlanta Braves, to create clean and safer spaces. So if you have a restaurant, office, commercial space, Cleanwell is the trusted partner to handle all your cleaning and facilities management needs. You can learn more by visiting cleanwellsafe.com.
He's the man that knows the cap, bonuses and all of that. He's the one that gets you cut. Front office, so don't give a word. He's the guy who knows the law. Can't put him against a wall. He's the guy with all the internet and sugar's back of answers. Front office, no moving.
All brought to you by Entry Point Doors and Windows. If you need to redo your entryway, they can handle that project. If you need to do all the windows in your home, something more energy efficient, maybe you've got some wood rot, they can handle all those projects as well. EntryPointAtlanta.com. Matt and Chuck, I love science.
Science!
Yes, science.
Big fan of science. So you guys know whenever we've done any of our naughty numbers on Mondays after NFL games, you now have, tied in with Amazon, NFL Next Gen Stats. That is where they continuously show us, like,
We just talk football for a minute.
air distance on throws. They try and give you where guys line up. They try and tell you percentages of when a guy faces a blitz, this is what he's doing versus it. So they're just taking analytics to a whole other level in the NFL. But they're also now doing this, and this has been going on for the last 2 off seasons. They have now tried to take their formulas and their informations to try and say, this particular NFL Combine draftee has a big-time potential of being an important player in the NFL. Let me tell you about this process they do, because we're always talking about, everyone tries to avoid the Mike Mamula situation. You don't remember that? It's about 20 years ago.
Yep.
Mamula was from, BC, and he blew up at the Combine, and they said, whoa, that big, and he moves like that, and he flew up the charts.
You know, the problem is he couldn't play football.
He could not play football.
And so that's one of the big differences with Next Gen Stats. Here's what they're looking to do with their models. They're looking to do an athleticism score, which is in comparison to the rest of, let's say, for instance, here's Travis Etienne. How does he measure up in terms of size, speed, and everything else with all the other running backs in his class? They also then take into, and this is where you always got to kind of worry about this in terms of college football, production. Because there's a lot of guys that put together 1,400-yard seasons catching the football that can't get away from NFL defenses. But production is a factor in what they do. And so also, they look at size. They want to measure these athletes versus these athletes. When you're a guy like Chase Young was last year, who had basically a 97 score, it's because he had the production at the college level. He also had tremendous size and speed.
Yeah,
Screamed, this guy's going to be a future player.
No matter whether you chickened or egged it with him, it matched. It was like, well, I'll see a guy who looks like this. What's the production? Well, I see the production, but how does he get there? No matter which way you attacked it from. Chase Young, I heard, was freaking who it was. Maybe Pro Football Focus, the second highest rated defensive end prospect they had ever evaluated.
That's pretty accurate. Now, here's when you think about last year, and this is where I say move it forward into what they're doing now. So Chase Young was number 1. The number 2 player in the draft, because of how he tested, his production score was obviously very good, but then just his size, speed, everything else, was CeeDee Lamb. He was the number 2 player last year in their next-gen stats. You then start going down the list. You start seeing some other guys. Joe Burrow, relative to the other quarterbacks in his draft, was a tremendous athlete. It put him in the top 5 of overall athletes going into the draft. Justin Herbert ends up showing up at number 6. Overall score of 90. So I bring those guys up to tell you about what is going on right now with Georgia's Eric Stokes. Eric Stokes, I think for anybody, and Chuck, I don't think we'd be speaking too crazy here. I've thought he's been the best cornerback in that program for the last couple of years, for as much talk as there is about Tyson Campbell.
Yeah, I was about to say, even though he didn't have the most advanced billing and he didn't get the most attention from fans or media, he's played really, really good football, and he can move his feet.
So here's the fun part. Eric Stokes, now that the testing has been done over at the University of Georgia, showed up just a teensy wit under 6'1". He's 6 foot and just barely under 6'1", 194 pounds. He ran a hand time 40 at 4.31 and a laser time, which is what everybody wants to look at. They want to get you under that laser, of 4.25.
Oh.
What did that do then? Here's the crazy part. He had the production in college. According to Next Gen Stats, they give him a score of 87. But his athleticism shows up in comparison to every other cornerback in this class at 99. His overall score is 96. And again, to kind of package that in a bow, that would be just a little bit behind what the package was with Chase Young last year. Again, Next Gen Stats has been doing this pretty well where you can say, man, I can kind of take some of this stuff to the bank with these guys. Like that's a pretty impressive looking group. The previous year, the 2019 draft, their top guys, Josh Allen, who was an absolute freak. Quinn Williams, who's been a solid player. Montez Sweat, who's been a player.
Yeah.
Ed Oliver. And the fun part, too, their top quarterback in that draft in 2019 for just overall athleticism with production was Gardner Minshew, who actually got on the field and was kind of
really
as a rookie. Yeah, that's who ended up. He had a score of 92.
Wow.
So much of this is about trying to take guys' athleticism, guys' production, and let's try and avoid the Mike Mamula, Vernon Golston, those sort of scenarios moving forward in the NFL draft.
Carlos, let me ask you a couple of things about this. Number one, because again, I'm not going by the mocks, I'm going by the big boards. What would you think? And you do your own. How would you make moves on guys like Stokes and Ojulari, for instance, after you see some of the next-gen numbers the way they popped?
Well, and that's the thing, because we've now seen this happen in the NFL draft, where we've seen guys that don't seem to perform very well in combine testing, and then they go out and they're pretty good football players. You got a running back in Minnesota. That's exactly what happened to him. But what you start eliminating is any of the questions of athleticism. Can a guy be athletic at this level? And so when Azeez Ojulari, and I want to see what his next-gen numbers end up coming out to, when he goes out and runs 4.6 at his size, and oh, by the way, his production skills are leading the SEC in sacks, that just screams first-round pick. That you start to eliminate some of those gray areas of, well, a guy, can he do it athletically at this level? Another player that I'll give you from 2019 that did very well was tight end Noah Fant. If you haven't watched him play,
oh wow,
he is athletic as it gets. Now, playing in Denver, nobody's watching you, but
you know, don't laugh at me. So there was a couple of reasons why, and we have fun with our prize picks, but I actually got on a good kick with him. He's super athletic. They throw the ball a ton to him.
Detroit realizes they took the wrong one.
Well, probably. He's a really good player.
Now, here's another player that we saw this all play out. This is from 2019. The top linebacker in the draft, who actually had a linebacker score of 98, was Devin White. I don't know if there's any more of a bigger Terminator in the NFC South. As much as I love watching, what goes on with Deion Jones, Devin White is all over the field. And so, again, you're marrying some of the analytics, some of the scouting, but then you're looking at it and saying, if I have a choice of the 5'9" guy versus the 6'1" corner, and it's pretty close, his athleticism and his size score is going to score out better when you start talking about it with next-gen stats. That is front office loaded.
Thank you, Los. Let me ask you one last thought, though, on Stokes. Where do you project him?
Ooh. I've seen him, and I believe he's a top 45 player. I think somebody gets crazy and starts looking at him as a top 35, top 30 guy.
Okay, so he could sneak into the first round.
I think if you keep looking at all these scores and these tests, and remember, this isn't a player that was not able to get his hands on the football. Like, he is a track athlete who also is the best cornerback in that group, who also was able to intercept passes. So there's nothing there where you say, oh, no, this is just a fast guy, but we don't think he can play football. He's already shown you for a couple years in the SEC he can play football.
When the other one we said that really impressed at Georgia's Pro Day was Ojulari. And again, going by the mocks is not the most scientific way to do this. I've seen him anywhere between 20 and 30. I wonder, with the lack of pass rushers, even if he might crawl up a little higher than that. Wonder if he could find his way between 15 or 20 with somebody just wanting to jump on his athleticism.
I think he's a top 20 player, but we'll see how it plays out. If you're looking for that 3-4 outside linebacker who can scream off the edge and bend like crazy, that's him.
All right, Los, thank you, my friend. Hoyt told me Stokes has only been playing corner since his senior year of high school. He was a wide receiver before that, so he's still refining his skills on that side of the football, which is intriguing too.
Yeah, that is a position to get paid at, and remember that was the Malcolm Mitchell discussion all the time.
Yep.
Did you see what they're doing? Lavassier Carroll, who was, he was like a top 10 running back in last year's class, and he's working at corner now because he's sixth on the running back depth chart.
That's how that one works, yeah. Let me update you quickly on some scores. We're coming down the stretch of the early window of games as we're counting down to Georgia Tech and Loyola Chicago here on the Fan coming up at 4 o'clock. Florida's going to hold on. In fact, they just did in overtime to beat Virginia Tech 75-70, so they advanced to round number 2. Colgate was giving Arkansas fits in the first half. As the 14 seed, Colgate was up by 14, 33-19. Now Arkansas leads 77-62. Do the math on that one. That's nearly, nearly a 30-point turnaround since that stretch. The number 1 seed, Illinois, blowing out Drexel 70-41 with about 6 minutes left there. And Utah State in an 11-6 matchup, they lead Texas Tech 26-23 at half. Chuck, the one thing we saw early in these games is not something that is that out of the ordinary. The noon starts are sometimes clunky early. And in this situation, very few fans are in the building. Shots weren't falling. The higher-seeded team sometimes presses a little bit early. Then they kind of slow down and get things going, and you saw that in a lot of this action.
Yeah, you did, and in particular with Virginia Tech and Florida, they both got deep into foul trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're getting into an overtime situation and now you're without, I think Virginia Tech had lost 3 players and Florida was down 2, you're not working deep enough benches, especially pressure points like that.
I heard the number and I didn't realize it. Virginia Tech, due to COVID and protocols and issues, they only played 3 games in 41 days. 3 games in 41 days, so yeah, needless to say, maybe a little rust was there for them. And so many times you could break these tournament games down way too much. Look at the free throw line. Today, you had Virginia Tech 15 of 21 for the line. Florida was 18 of 27, but hit theirs late.
Yeah.
As Virginia Tech in overtime was making a push. So we'll count you down. Georgia Tech and Loyola comes up at 4 o'clock. The network pregame, the Ramblin' Wreck tip-off show at 3:30. Chuck has got a college football today coming up next. What can we look forward to?
One ACC quarterback will miss the rest of spring practice. And this story may have a surprise ending.
Ooh, I like a surprise ending. Plus, I'm going to paint a picture. Kind of compare and contrast the old guy with the Falcons to the new guy and how they present what they're looking for defensively. You'll hear that.
Fill me in. What's out there?
I will next, Coach. Chuck and Chernoff live at Harrah's Cherokee on the Fan. Let's go. I agree. It's Chuck and Chernoff live at Harrah's Cherokee. We're right outside the book. It is officially opened for business yesterday. It's been a great crowd, both for the first 4 that started the tournament action yesterday and today, the first full day. I cannot endorse enough the idea of making the short drive to Harrah's Cherokee, Valley River in Murphy, North Carolina, or here. It's really it's a beautiful drive. It's so close. Harrah's Cherokee. Enjoy the resort, the food, the spa, the book, all of the above. It's a great way to do it. The 3 o'clock hour of our show is brought to you by Atlanta Bin Cleaning. For just $10 a bin, you can get your trash bins cleaned, deodorized, and sanitized. And this is not the old way of cleaning your trash can with the Clorox or the warm hose in the
Matt,
water.
excuse me. Thumb about 2/3 over the opening on the hose. It creates enough pressure. It's fine. It'll be good.
They have this cool system in Atlanta Bin Cleaning where they will pick up your bins. They'll clean
I saw
them.
it happen.
This eco-friendly,
I was
incredible
impressed.
system kills all germs, viruses, and most important to us, not that that's not important, those cans sit in your garage or by the side of the house and they stink. Get rid of that smell, the odors, all of it. AtlantaBinCleaning.com is where you go. Use the promo code MattLana to get 10 a bin. Everybody's got $10. Everybody's got stinky cans. You can eliminate one with the other.
You got a podcast? Huh?
Welcome to Atlanta. New episode dropping. Oh, it's an Ask Me Anything edition coming up next week. Secrets revealed.
Can't wait.
Looking
Be
forward to
awesome.
it. I know. I've offered to have you on, but you bailed on me. It hurt.
I was doing that stuff with those people.
I understand. After Chuck gives you a CFT, we're going to paint a picture of what the old guy tried to do and what the new guy told us he's going to do. That after a CFT.
Won't compromise, you shouldn't settle for less, because happiness just makes sense. Duffy Realty,
Chuck Oliver's College Football Today, brought to you by Duffy Realty of Atlanta. Because money matters.
Got to beat it, King. Duffy Realty, ATL.com.
And hello, YouTube. Is it YouTube?
YouTube 680 The Fan YouTube. Hi.
What up?
Good to see Matt's face. Now that the Virginia Tech Florida game's over, I'm looking into the camera.
So, yeah, it's Friday. We get the Happy Duffy song. And, yeah, if you're looking to sell your home, use Rhonda. $500 up front, 0.75% at closing. That's it. And then the house gets sold. That's been my experience. Sold 3 with Rhonda. Difference between her and old-fashioned agent, nearly $35,000. So that's awesome. I said an ACC quarterback is done for spring, but it may have a little bit of a surprise ending. Matthew, if a program has a returning senior and a returning junior, and then they sign 2 4-star quarterbacks, and then one of the 4-stars gets hurt and can't play in spring, what does he always do? Always, always, always in today's game.
There's a transfer.
Going to transfer out.
I got it.
I don't think that's going to happen at FSU. Chuba Purdy, kid from Arizona. Rodemaker's the Valdosta quarterback, but
Chuba Purdy.
Brock Purdy's little brother.
Of course it is.
Kid from Iowa State.
I love him. Brock and Chuba. What were his parents doing?
Those are good-looking kids, man.
Okay.
Great athletes, all of it. Good students, all of it. So he's at Florida State, and he came in about the worst way you wanted in the middle of the pandemic, and then got hurt at the end of August. Got a start in November, but then got hurt again, and so that was Purdy's experience, like his first, 4 months there actually playing ball. Well, Tate Rodemaker, who's the other freshman 4-star, well, he's got a start as well. In fact, I think he got 2. They got Jordan Travis coming back. They had James Blackman last year, and now they got Mackenzie Milton in the program. Mike Norvell announced last night, I think, that after their first 4 practices, Purdy is out for the rest of spring. That the surgery that he'd already have 2 procedures on, that now you talk about, Matt, there are things, sometimes you like having stuff named after you, like bird rights. That's good, isn't it?
Well, if you're Larry Bird, yeah.
Because we can pay you more. Tommy John surgery. Did you want that named after you?
No, but you did come back from it. So.
All right. Well, a doctor looking at looked at his shoulder and said, we have an experimental process we may want to try. And he was like, no, I think I'll pass on that. So they've had now 3 full procedures on it. and he is out for spring, and Norvell announced that he's not going to take the field at all, that he's going to spend the rest of the time working on rehab, getting back, be ready for summer workouts in August, but no more on-field action for the rest of the spring. That kid is supposed to transfer. I don't think he's going to, because he and Rodemaker are the future of the position. Not for 2021 in any scenario, even if they were both healthy. They're the future beginning in 22-23, and they do different things. And so if they were carbon copies and we got one offense and 4 quarterbacks who all look exactly the same, at that point, I'm behind 3 other guys who are just like me. Purdy and Rodemaker, I believe, both understand that we were really going to be in the mix in a normal setting in 2021. Purdy looks at it as like, I'm the opposite of Rodemaker. We're both going to play. We'll stay in the program. No transfer is what I believe will happen.
Chuck Oliver's College Football Today, brought to you by Duffy Realty of Atlanta on the college football voice of the South, 680, The Fan.
Now, if you're just joining us and you're thinking, Matt and Chuck, what are you doing with a CFT right off the top of the 3 o'clock hour? We started at 2 today. Special edition of the program from Harrah's Cherokee leading up to Georgia Tech and Loyola NCAA tourney action. Pregame at 3:30, tip at 4, and then we'll be back for a postgame. Maybe we'll take some calls, hang out here from the book. So after the Tech Network postgame, be right here with us again later today. We're putting you to work here. Just don't relax after a CFT. Doc McChuckins stops by in about 5 or 6 minutes. What can we look forward to?
I have a tease, I think.
I would hope. Part of the process.
A day 2 pick who teams are going to regret not properly evaluating.
All right, we'll get to that coming up. But first, I wanted to point out to the audience the most glaring difference between the old guy and the new guy, and it's just about approach. So one of the things, and I complained about a lot with Dan Quinn, but one of my bigger consistent complaints was about Quinn's defensive approach, how simplistic it was, and how stubborn he was about not changing things up. Quinn always believed in keeping things simple. He would verbalize that as much. He would rush 4 defensive linemen exclusively, unless those very special 3rd and 16 occasions popped up, and he would rush 3, which would then give up 17 yards on the 3rd and 16. Dan rarely believed in blitzing. It was always the same formula each and every game that the Falcons lost, where teams would talk about in the 3rd and 4th quarter starting to get a better beat on what the Falcons were doing because they weren't changing things up. And then in the 4th quarter, as the Falcons wore down, then teams would really exploit them late in games. So I wanted to point out
It's not supposed to be that predictable.
It's not, but remember, Dan ran exactly what he ran in Seattle here with the Falcons,
Plus their personnel,
which is laughable. That you tried to do the same thing here that you did in Seattle, thinking it would work the same way.
Clark Lee at Vanderbilt going, hey, we ran it at Notre Dame and it worked.
It's not how that one goes. So I want to play for you a piece of audio from Mike Lombardi, former GM in the league, bounced around a good bit to different organizations. He's now working for The Athletic, and he also hosts a podcast called the GM Shuffle. He talked about Dan Quinn last season and what his approach should be with the Cowboys now that he's the DC in Dallas. Take a listen.
I love Dan Quinn. He's one of the great guys in the league. But, one thing defenses try to do to make quarterbacks uncomfortable is confuse them. And when you watched Atlanta last year when Dan was the head coach and they were running his defense, after he left, they got better on defense, and they changed what they did. I think Dan needs to change a little bit what he's going to do, because if you come out and run one front and one coverage, and the quarterback knows it, you're going to have really good players up front to win.
Mike Lombardi just hit it on the head. That's exactly the situation. And I don't say that because I care what's going to happen in Dallas. I really don't. I say that because Dan just never had the ability or the want to change. And now that he's going to be in Dallas, I have my doubts on whether he will. But what Lombardi started with there is Dan's a great guy. Everybody loves Dan. He interviews well. He sells himself. He's going to get jobs. That doesn't mean he's going to be good at what he does. So let's fast forward to what the Falcons are going to have now. Dean Pease takes over as the defensive coordinator. And all I can go on with Dean Pease is what everybody tells me. His success in other stops, his history. Doesn't mean it'll work here, but everywhere he's been, he's had success. The thing you hear most about Dean Pease is he gets the most out of his talent, and that's all I can ever ask out of a coach. So you ask, what's the approach from Dean Pease when it comes to trying to confuse quarterbacks? What's the style? This was Dean Pease at his first press conference with the Falcons talking about that approach.
One of the things that our defense will know is that if you are on our defense, every position will blitz. Every position. not just the safeties, not just the linebackers. It's corners. It's everybody. If you go back a couple years ago when I was at Tennessee, I want the defense to know we're coming from everywhere.
It might not be true, but that's of course how you approach it. That's what you say. And from what I understand about Dean, who runs and has run 3-4 fronts for the most part, but can morph into a 4-3, is he will blitz coming off the bus if need be. He will blitz from all angles, the corners, the safeties, the linebackers. And he says, you know what, my talent is not good enough to line up and just say, we're going to rush the front four and we'll be fine. No, he looks at his talent like he did in Tennessee, which was not great.
And they were tough. That's what it was. And you can kind of choose to be tough.
Chuck, they were top 5 in sacks.
Yeah.
2 years ago and last year, they couldn't get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to work with Dean. No idea. But I do know this. I think schematically you're going to be better. I think the approach is going to be better. And I don't think it's going to be this stubborn, we do what we do, and I'm not about to change. That was a huge fault of Dan Quinn, and I think you're going to see the difference in what a coach can get out of talent with Dean Pease.
I agree with your summary on Dan's personality because it's about selling yourself. It's not about snowing the owner or the GM and trying to get hired, but it's about presenting yourself the best way you can. Dan comes off well. I mean, that is an environment like Eric Bieniemy. Does he walk in like picking his nose and Putin? I mean, what? Because he doesn't interview well. Apparently, Dan Quinn interviews great.
Of course, he's a salesman. But you know what? The most damning thing about Dan is, and Lombardi brought it up when he spoke on it. In 2019, when Dan gave up the defensive coordinator responsibilities, the Falcons got better in the second half of the year, substantially better. Last year, when Dan got fired, the defense got better again. That's so damning to say that you left, things changed, simple things too. Deion Jones became a rocket, who they sent after quarterbacks.
He had, I think, 2.5 sacks in his entire career leading up to Week 5 last year, and had 3.5, I think it was, in the final 10 games.
Foye, who was sent on blitzes more, different looks, different approaches, knowing we're not talented enough just to sit back and say, Drew Brees, we're going to play our front four and we're going to stop you. No.
He's in the corner. That scares me. I don't like center corner.
That's fine. But you want different looks. You want the defense to not know, based on the way you're setting up, what you're going to do. I mean, again, I'm a novice when it comes to this stuff, and I watched the Falcon defense and said, well, it's the fourth quarter, and the Falcons are doing the same ish they did in the first and second quarter. It's going to get you beat.
I might have been wrong, and if I would have been wrong, I wouldn't bring it up, 6 months later. My hand raised to the Lord, Matt. I called exactly what was going to happen at the end of that Detroit game. I was like, I know exactly how this is going to end.
You know what he did? He played deep, 2 safeties deep. He rushed 3 or 4, couldn't get pressure on Stafford, so he just picked you apart.
My wife, she's like, oh, they're winning. I was like, they're not going to, though. But they're winning, but they're not going to win.
Because you saw that same thing so many times, it was predictable, which I understand.
Stafford's like, oh, hey, there he is.
I hope you guys are digging in to Putt for a Porsche. We are winding down to the home stretch as we try to give you a chance to win that 2021 all-electric Porsche Taycan from Hennessy Porsche, North Atlanta. We're going to be live next week for the finals, but there's still time for you guys to join us and get registered. Now, the finalists will also receive a Breitling Super Ocean Auto 42 from Brown & Company Jewelers, valued at over $4,000. That's regardless of the putting outcome. Everyone who qualifies will get that M-Craft putter from Mizuno. All the rules, information up at 680thefan.com. If you want one final opportunity with us next week, go to the website for more. It's all brought to us by PGA Tour Superstore in Roswell, as well as Hennessy Porsche North Atlanta, Brown & Company Jewelers, and Mizuno.
Dr. McChuckins.
Ha 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 ha.
I told you we got a day 2 pick who some teams are going to regret not properly evaluating. Now, day 2, I mean, that's pretty good real estate still.
Yeah, second and third round?
Second and third.
Or is it just second round now?
Second, third round.
Okay.
And so you get it's a really quality draft pick, and whoever the kid is, it's still a really good place to go. And I'm talking about Nick Bolton, though, because he's not supposed to be a day 2 anything. He's supposed to be a first rounder. I am starting to think that his lack of height, his perceived lack of athleticism is going to move him into the Darius Leonard role on draft night. Remember, the Darius Leonard role also includes a Defensive Rookie of the Year award, a Pro Bowl, twice All-Pro, and a looming contract extension of, I don't know, Los, what, like 5 and 90-ish? Like 40, 45 guaranteed? But the level of competition at South Carolina State, and he ran slow in Indy. And then Darius Leonard showed up as a rookie second-round draft choice because, well, man, he was really productive, but, he ran slow, and he played in played for South Carolina State in a lower level. Darius Leonard led the NFL in tackles as a rookie. And again, when I say a Pro Bowl, that's great. About 10 linebackers make the Pro Bowl, and about 10 turn it down, so there's 20. 4 guys make All-Pro, and he's been All-Pro twice. To me, that's the kind of player where the 5th year on the contract would have been useful. Even the Colts have regrets about Darius Leonard. I hope no NFL team looks at Nick Bolton that same way and lets him slip to the second.
22 out.
All right, we're live at Harrah's Cherokee as the tourney action continues. The brand new book opened up yesterday. It's been a great crowd. Seen a bunch of our listeners as well.
Yep.
Over the last couple of days, which has been very nice. Georgia Tech will come up at 4 o'clock with a 3:30 pregame. We'll send you off to pregame here in just a couple of moments. Let's update you on some of the action going on right now. Number 2 seed Ohio State leads the 15 Oral Roberts 21-15. It's interesting because Oral Roberts jumped out to a 7-0 lead, and then Ohio State found its footing and has taken now a 6-point lead. Utah State and Texas Tech right now. Texas Tech with a 10-point lead over Utah State, 45-35 with 11 minutes to go there. And again, we'll keep you up to date on the rest of the action as the afternoon window opens up for the Jackets, who again, the best way I can describe it is the bummer to be without Moses Wright. I'm guessing Rodney Howard starts. We'll see if Josh at sometimes tries to go small, which is a big risk. If you're going to go small, 2 things. You better be pushing it up the floor, and you've got to take advantage with some three-point shooting. I saw the number this morning. In the 4 losses for Loyola, team shot over 40% from 3. So maybe that's the angle for Georgia Tech today. But again, without that big body, you got to have Rodney Howard against Krautwig to try to slow him down.
And you know what we've talked about plenty, and Josh used to talk about a lot. Get old, stay old. We have given him credit because this is what that team is. It's not just compared to earlier Tech teams. Tech is maybe the oldest team in the tournament, or one of the 5 oldest teams in the tournament. That plays in March because you don't get spooked by, well, we're down a player, he's not going to play at all, or there's foul trouble, or we're down 17-5 at the outset. We saw, Appy was down, 19 last night, and they had App State was down either 17 or 19, and they wound up both a 5 or 6 point lead at times in the second half. So
with Arkansas today down 14.
And so an older team, that's one of the things that's kind of included with that.
Well, I think the other part that you're seeing right now is we haven't seen a ton of one-and-done success with those teams in the tournament. It has been the older teams. Look at your Baylors right now, your Gonzagas. Yeah. Like even Illinois, you got a lot of veteran teams. Michigan even to that extent.
And Illinois looked at today, and you don't know how it is because they came out of a brutal conference this year with a bunch of NBA frontline players, forwards and centers, and it can go 2 ways. Either you're so hardened from the regular season, like Ohio State and Purdue against North Texas is a good example to take a look at, Michigan, that once you get to you're playing a level of competition not as brutal as your conference schedule, that it gets easy, or you're just flat out fatigued. Like Ohio State, didn't they play an overtime game in the conference championship game?
They played against Illinois in OT.
In 4 games in 4 days?
Yep.
I mean, in coming out of a regular season that conference, there's no way they're fresh.
You wouldn't think. Now, one name to pay attention to today is Cade Cunningham, the Oklahoma State freshman.
He's great.
He's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft unless something weird happens. They'll play tonight against Liberty at 6:25. So if you're looking for that special young talent that can carry a team, I have them as they're a 4 seed. My sleeper to go to the Final Four. He's that special. He's that good.
Tough thing for Oklahoma State and anybody who plays Liberty. Of all the teams in the conference, and I think they're 3rd or 4th in America, fewest possessions per game. I mean, Liberty walks it up, they back it out and stare at the clock, and so that's their normal game, and so you're going to have a hard time shining if you're a stud against them.
Our 3 p.m. hour is brought to you by Atlanta Bin Cleaning. For just $10 a bin, you can get your trash bins clean. So you want that trash can, that recycling bin clean, deodorized and sanitized, go to the website, AtlantaBinCleaning.com, and I've heard some great response from a lot of you guys who have jumped on the opportunity to save some money doing this. $10 gets rid of those dirty cans, those dirty recycling bins. AtlantaBinCleaning.com. Use the promo code MattLana.
And I want to give full credit because I just sounded a little bit like a Jay Billis or an expert. I got a buddy of mine that's a professional handicapper. He told me all of that stuff. All right. So
remember, we're back after Georgia Tech postgame. Thanks to Brandon Joseph. Good job, Hoyt. Thanks to Los. Enjoy the Jackets against Loyola. It's NCAA tournament action on the Fan.